Did you know? In just 1 year, South Korea's chip exports to China dropped by a staggering 31%. Behind that number lies a silent tech war that's quietly rewriting the global map. The tech war, and Washington's first move in 2025, the U.S. officially reinstated tariffs and export controls targeting critical tech sectors. The goal? To block China from accessing advanced semiconductor technologies, especially in 3 key areas: electric vehicles, EVs, artificial intelligence, AI, next-gen telecom networks, 5G. Why is the U.S. doing this? Because in today's world, whoever controls the chips controls the future. But here's the catch. The U.S. can't do this alone. They need a partner. And South Korea is the first strategic link in this global tech chain. South Korea, from manufacturer to game changer. South Korea isn't just a chip maker. It's Asia's supply chain powerhouse, home to billions of critical components, produced by giants like Samsung and SK Hynix. For years, Chinese tech firms like Huawei, BYD, and NIO relied heavily on Korean chips to power their smart EVs, AI servers, and premium phone systems. But in early 2025, chip exports from South Korea to China suddenly dropped by 31%. Some trade-offs are simply unavoidable, said a senior official from Korea's Ministry of Trade. As we deepen our partnership with the United States on critical technologies, losing a portion of our market share in China is a price we're willing to pay. This is no longer a purely economic decision. It's a geopolitical move. Plain and simple. The US and South Korea, a chip alliance that's rewriting the rules. Washington didn't waste time. The US and South Korea quickly agreed on a deep partnership in semiconductor supply chains, EV technologies, and long-term tech security, and the US made its expectations clear. We want more market share, more data, more access. In return, Washington promised partial tariff exemptions for Korean chips R&D support for Korean firms operating in the US. Priority access to key federal tech funding. Seoul understood the message. The US market is bigger, more stable, and far less risky than China's tightening grip. This isn't about choosing sides anymore. It's about choosing survival. China. When a tech lifeline gets strangled, Beijing has poured billions of dollars into building a domestic chip industry, but the results still fall far short of expectations. China still can't produce high-speed memory chips, core AI processors, or modern microcontrollers for electric vehicles. Why? Because it lacks original chip design licenses, ultra-precise manufacturing tools, and deep inherited technical expertise without access to Korean chips. Major players like BYD and Xiaomi have been forced to delay key projects. Even new smartphones are now shipping with older, underpowered chips. One industry expert called it a domino effect in tech, where a single break in the supply chain can shake the entire industry. Who's winning us and who's losing? China is plotting a counterattack, but its options are limited. Boycott Korean goods could backfire, hurting its own consumers. Sanction Samsung, LG, or Hyundai risks damaging its own supply chains. Expand ties with Russia or Malaysia, but lacks access to core technologies. Meanwhile, South Korea is reaping the benefits from Washington. Tax breaks for investments, support for domestic production in the US, and priority treatment under tech policies like Buy American, but from allies. As for global consumers, prices on electronics are ticking up slightly. Some product launches are facing delays. But for US and Korean tech firms, this is a golden window, a chance to seize global market share. Because this isn't just a fight between governments, it's a race to control the future of what the world buys. Don't look away. There's so much more waiting for you. Trump wants Greenland, but does he know that this strategy is pushing the world into a trade war? And this could cost you when buying a car. Tensions are rising, and the ripple effects might make things more expensive for everyday consumers.
We need Greenland for national security purposes. I've been told that for a long time.
Trump is making waves again by reproposing the idea of buying Greenland. With its rich resources and strategic location, he believes it's a steal for U.S. national security. But this story is not as simple as he thinks. Greenland and Denmark have responded strongly.
Dear President Trump, listen very carefully. Greenland has been part of the Danish kingdom for 800 years. It's an integrated part of our country. It is not for sale.
And it's not just Greenland. Europe, especially Germany and France, have sided with Denmark and strongly opposed the idea. This is not just a territorial dispute, but a struggle over sovereignty and the right to self-determination. So, how does this affect you? It's the US-EU trade war. Trump has bluntly accused the EU of unfair trade practices, claiming that millions of European cars flood US roads, while American cars face numerous barriers to entering the European market. With this move, Trump is not only pushing for higher tariffs on European cars, but also threatening major car manufacturers like Volkswagen, BMW, and Mercedes, forcing them to reconsider their expansion plans in the US. But Europe is not backing down easily. Ursula von der Leyen, President of the European Commission, has declared that the EU will retaliate strongly if tariffs are imposed. German and French leaders, including Chancellor Olaf Scholz and President Emmanuel Macron, have stated that they cannot accept such a trade imbalance. If a tariff war occurs, you might end up paying more when buying a car. Car prices will rise, and if you're looking to buy a Tesla electric car, this will directly impact you. The crisis doesn't stop at the trade war. Tesla, the leader in the electric vehicle industry, is now facing a new storm. Denmark, once one of Tesla's key markets in Europe, has made Musk headache as the country's pension funds collectively pull out of Tesla. The reason? Tesla's stance against unions and its refusal to sign collective bargaining agreements with workers. Funds like Pension Denmark and Academiker Pension, with billions of dollars in assets, have lost patience with Tesla and decided to remove the company from their investment portfolios. This not only affects Tesla's image, but also fuels growing public dissatisfaction with the company's labor policies. On top of that, strikes across Northern Europe, especially in Denmark, have blocked Tesla vehicles, escalating tensions between Tesla and labor unions in Europe. And so, we are faced with an undeniable truth. Tesla, once a symbol of innovation, is now facing a crisis. In Germany, the largest electric car market in Europe, Tesla's sales dropped by 76% in just February 2025. Meanwhile, the electric vehicle market as a whole saw a 30% growth. What's the reason? Tesla is losing the consumer trust, and this is not because their cars are bad, but because of labor issues and the increasing competition from European car manufacturers. Especially German consumers, a nation known for their love of brands like Mercedes and BMW, are now turning their backs on Tesla. A recent survey shows that up to 94% of Germans no longer want to buy a Tesla. This proves that the rise of European electric car makers like Volkswagen and Renault is slowly reclaiming Tesla's market share. And it's not just that. Elon Musk's increasing involvement in European politics, especially his support for the far-right AfD party in Germany, is further eroding Tesla's public trust.
Frankly, too much of a focus on past guilt, and we need to move beyond that. Children should not be guilty of the sins of their parents.
So, what do you think? Are you willing to pay more for a Tesla car in the future? But don't rush to conclusions, because the next developments will be even more surprising. U.S. markets lose $3.6 trillion. Canada strikes back. Is America backfiring on itself? Overnight, the U.S. market evaporates $3.6 trillion. Canada retaliates aggressively. American industries are in turmoil. Is this new tariff policy backfiring? U.S. raises tariffs. Trade war ignites on March 4, 2025. The U.S. administration officially enforces new tariffs, 25% on imports from Canada and Mexico, an additional 10% levy on Canadian energy. Tariffs on Chinese goods increased from 10% to 20%. Why? The U.S. government claims this move is to protect the national economy and curb illegal goods flowing from neighboring countries. But is this truly a victory? Within hours of the tariff policy taking effect, Canada strikes back. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau declares, if the U.S. imposes tariffs, Canada will retaliate immediately. And that's exactly what happened. Canada slaps a 25% tariff on $155 billion worth of U.S. goods, targeting key economic sectors. $30 billion taxed immediately, the remaining $125 billion to follow in 21 days. This is Canada's strongest trade response in history against the U.S. Canadian provinces fight back Ontario. Doug Ford. Energy retaliation 25% tariff on electricity exports to the U.S., impacting 1.5 million homes in New York, Michigan, and Minnesota. Warning: complete power cutoff if tariffs remain in place by April. $100 million contract with Elon Musk's Starlink canceled. Nova Scotia. Tim Houston. Blocking U.S. trade. Doubles toll fees for U.S. trucks crossing the province. Removes all American liquor from Nova Scotia Liquor Corporation shelves. Bans U.S. companies from bidding on government contracts. Alberta. Danielle Smith. Market diversion. Accuses the U.S. of sabotaging trade agreements. Declares reduced reliance on the U.S. expanding exports to Europe and Asia. Urges government investment in domestic military and manufacturing industries to break dependence on the U.S. Manitoba. Wab Kinyu. Targeting consumer goods. Bans American liquor from all Manitoba Liquor Mart stores. Dealing a blow to the U.S. alcohol industry. Newfoundland and Labrador. Andrew Furey. Cutting business ties. Reevaluating all procurement contracts with U.S. businesses. Shifting trade focus to Europe. Decreasing reliance on the U.S. Canada has never retaliated with such unified force before. U.S. financial markets crash. Within days of the U.S.-Canada tariff war escalating, the American financial markets collapse. Dow Jones plummets nearly 800 points, one of the biggest drops this year. S&P 500 and NASDAQ decline by 2%, entering correction territory. $3.6 trillion wiped out from the market, sending shockwaves through Wall Street. Industries hit the hardest. Automotive, Ford and GM face projected losses of $14 billion and $6 billion, respectively. Construction. The housing sector struggles with soaring costs due to taxed raw materials. Consumer goods. Americans now confront rising prices as import taxes take effect. Investors panic, shifting money into U.S. Treasury bonds for safety. This leads to lower bond yields, a classic signal of an impending economic recession. What will the U.S. do next? What will Washington do next? Will they retract tariffs to prevent further damage? Will they intensify pressure on Canada despite economic risks? Will they seek a new trade agreement? If the U.S. doesn't adjust its strategy soon, the world's leading economy may be headed for a deeper crisis than anticipated. Trump is trying to deny responsibility for the current economic situation and the ongoing political controversies, while his approval ratings are plummeting. Instead of facing the facts, he continues to blame the Democratic Party and stir up extremist movements like Dark MAGA. These actions not only reflect his political strategy, but also raise a crucial question. Can Trump maintain his influence, or will he ultimately be left behind in this fiercely competitive political race? This is an issue Trump can't avoid: the economy. Unemployment soared, millions lost their jobs, and businesses large and small were forced to shut down. When looking at the facts, Trump can't continue claiming to be the greatest operator in the face of this. But instead of taking responsibility for the economic crisis that the U.S. faced, he shifts the blame to external factors. He says it's all due to the poor management of the Democratic Party and insists that the hardships people are facing have nothing to do with his policies. Furthermore, Trump's policies, such as tax cuts for large corporations and the wealthy, did not have a significant impact on the working class, where unemployment rates remained high. In reality, his policies primarily benefited the wealthy, while regular Americans struggled. Yet, Trump insists that all the failures are the result of poor management by his political opponents, and none of it is his fault. Could the truth be so clear that it cannot be denied? Despite the decreasing approval ratings, Trump relentlessly seeks financial support, and recently he sent emails urging his supporters to donate to his campaign. In these emails, he not only asks for financial support, but also intensifies his accusations against the Democratic Party, claiming they are threatening the freedom of the country and its citizens. But interestingly, Trump doesn't stop there. He links this situation to the extremist movement he calls Dark MAGA, which he says is fighting for America. Trump argues that this movement represents the fight against control by the elites and socialists who seek to undermine America. He urges his supporters to donate to his campaign to support this fight against censorship and the hostility of Democratic politicians. Predictably, Trump continues using fear and dissatisfaction to reinforce his campaign, with the goal of maintaining power and support among conservative voters. The Dark MAGA movement is not a new concept, but recently, Trump has emphasized its importance. However, when looking deeper into the nature of this movement, many people begin to worry about its potential negative consequences for American politics. Dark MAGA is a call for hardcore conservatives who want to escape the influence of the Democratic Party and restore a more powerful and independent image of America. Trump encourages his supporters to join this movement, stating that only through Dark MAGA can America be saved from the left-wing policies he believes are ruining the country. However, many fear that these calls will only deepen divisions within the U.S., making it harder than ever to find common ground. Trump frames this as a necessary fight, but some critics argue it will further polarize the nation, making it even more difficult to achieve unity. Will this radical movement be the solution to the country's issues, or will it lead to even more destruction? The truth is, as more of his policies fail and more political scandals emerge, Trump's supporters are slowly realizing that he's not the savior they once believed him to be. Polls show a significant drop in support from key voter groups, including independents and women voters. This decline is not just impacting Trump's political career, but also signals that voters are becoming disillusioned with the divisive strategies Trump has been using. Despite this, Trump continues to blame the Democratic Party and relentlessly pushes extremist ideologies, hoping to maintain support from the far right. But is this strategy really enough to keep him in the political game, or will it eventually backfire, leaving him behind? Once a powerful symbol of the MAGA movement, Donald Trump and his allies are now facing a wave of backlash across the United States and even in Canada. From Texas, a Republican stronghold, to Toronto, where a crowd erupted in boos during the U.S. national anthem. The anger is growing. Have people turned their backs on Trump, or is this just a temporary reaction? In Texas, where Trump previously won by a landslide, something unusual happened. At a town hall meeting for Congressman Keith Self, a loyal MAGA member, the crowd erupted in boos and furious protests. As a Republican representative in Texas' 3rd Congressional District, where Trump holds a plus 30-point advantage over Democrats, Keith Self was expected to receive strong support. Instead, he was attacked by his own voters at the event. The crowd chanted, "Do your job, do your job," expressing their deep frustration with MAGA policies. This raises a crucial question. If even Trump's most loyal supporters are turning against him, can he maintain his political stronghold? It's not just Americans. Canadians are furious too. At a WWE event in Toronto, as the U.S. national anthem played, the crowd erupted. Why? Because of Trump's aggressive policies against Canada, threatening to annex Canada, a shocking and unacceptable idea, imposing steep tariffs on Canadian goods, severely damaging the country's economy. Canadians have started boycotting American products and limiting travel to the U.S. as a way to protest Trump's administration. This marks a serious breakdown in U.S.-Canada relations, once considered one of the strongest alliances in the world. If Trump continues down this path, not only Canada, but the entire world may turn against him. While protests against Trump grow louder, America is facing an economic and social crisis. But what is Trump doing? Not holding emergency meetings, not implementing solutions. Instead, he's playing golf. Images of Trump relaxing on the golf course while America struggles have sparked widespread public outrage. Living costs are skyrocketing. Inflation continues to burden the middle class and working Americans. Protests against budget cuts are erupting across the country. Yet Trump remains detached from reality, as if nothing is happening. Is this how a leader should act during a national crisis? While everyday Americans struggle, Trump's new budget plan delivers massive tax cuts to the wealthy, while slashing essential services for the most vulnerable. Medicaid cuts. Trump slashes $880 billion from Medicaid, leaving millions without medical care. Hospitals in rural areas may shut down. Prescription drug prices will soar. Elderly, disabled, and low-income families suffer the most. Education crisis. A $400 billion cut to public schools and student aid means fewer teachers, larger class sizes, higher tuition, making college unaffordable. Special education and low-income schools lose critical funding. Farmers struggle. Food prices rise. With $300 billion in cuts to farm assistance, small farms face bankruptcy, food shortages and higher grocery prices. Big corporations take over agriculture. Billionaires get richer. While Americans suffer, Trump's plan delivers trillions in tax breaks to the ultra-wealthy. The top 1% saves billions. Corporations get richer while worker wages stay low. Fewer regulations mean more corporate greed and pollution. Who really wins? Not workers, students, farmers, or seniors, but the wealthy elite. Trump sells this budget as economic reform, but in reality, it's a direct attack on the middle and working class. How much longer will Americans keep paying the price?